So I'm Reverend Katharine Henderson. So what first comes to your mind when I tell you I'm a minister? Hands up, positive. Hands up, negative. I'm actually having trouble seeing hands, but I imagine you're just being a little polite. You see, there's always the dilemma when I get on an airplane and my seatmate asks me what I do for a living. So do I tell the truth and say that I'm a minister, or do I go to the safer, I'm in education? Because if you tell somebody that you're in the God business, you can immediately see their minds racing. Did I say any curse words as I was sitting down in my seat? Or is she going to try to convert me? Or they go to the place where a religious leader hurt them or bored them, or to the moment when the religious right took God captive. Or they go to extremisms, the bloodletting of those things in the name of God. Now, I can understand exactly why religion might give you pause, because it did for me some time ago, and sometimes it still does, despite my profession. You see, I grew up in the church. My father was a seminary professor and a minister, and although we weren't conservative Christians, we were serious, earnest, church-going folk. So serious that by that time I got to 16, I was really ready to leave it all behind. God, the church, Jesus, the Bible, the hymns, the prayers. I confess to you that I did keep Christmas. But I became sort of a nihilist, and what comforted me most in those days was that at bottom, nothing really mattered. It was sort of a pared-down worldview. And that's the worldview that I took with me during my sophomore year of college to Germany, when I found myself standing outside of a Benedictine monastery, talking to the priest at the door in a sort of in-your-face voice, asking him if I could take communion, since I wasn't Catholic. I expected him to say no, which would have been his right by church law and common practice then and even today. But instead he said, yes, you can if you want to. You won't be turned aside. So without knowing it, that priest, whose name I never knew and who never knew my name, chose my humanity over his rules of exclusion. He welcomed me in when he could have set up barriers. He let me know and led me on the way to being the minister I am today, and I have never looked back. And he also reminded me of what my parents were doing at the time, marching with people of other religious traditions and races for civil rights, working on behalf of others. That priest and my parents let me know what good religion looks and feels like. And so today, I find myself working with leaders of faith and moral courage who represent that kind of big-hearted, warm-hearted, embracing religion that priest embodied for me so long ago, and that really transformed me. You see, I run a school that some have called a school for prophets. We equip leaders of faith and moral courage to do the work of justice. But they are not just the Christians of my childhood. They are Jews and Muslims and Sikhs and humanists and pagans. And although we come from different traditions and perspectives, we know that we are working together to build multi-faith movements for justice based on the belief and the knowledge that we are all interdependent, that we are connected to each other, and that we have to work on behalf of each other, on behalf of all humanity, and we have to work together fiercely. Now, one of our leaders has decided that we're sort of like the X-Men, the superheroes of comic book fame, here to take on good and evil and to set things right in the world. And so he has given all of us names, superpower names, superhero names fit for our personalities. So there's Professor Xavier, and there's Jubilee, and there's Storm, and there's Banshee. Do you all know these names? Great. And I have a name too. I have a superpower name. I am Queen Lalandre. I come from another planet. I'm telepathic, and I can drive a mean starship. Now, what our leaders have learned is that none of them can change the world alone. They have learned that although they have superpowers, individual superpowers, that together they are unstoppable, that those strengths that they have are more potent when they work together for good. They have learned that the priest needs the rabbi, and the imam needs the minister, and the conservative needs the progressive, and the contemplative who knows so much about meditation and prayer actually needs the activist on the front lines to do the work of justice. They have learned, and they know what all of us know here, that it takes all of us to change the world. So here's what it can look like up close. Do you all remember that climate change march in New York City about 2 years ago when 500,000 people gathered here on the streets of New York City to fight climate change together? Well, we decided that we needed to build an ark, a wooden ark, a 28-foot ark on a flatbed truck. And the ark looked great. And here it is. That's the ark. Doesn't it look great? And on the ark, there was a rabbi blowing a shofar, and there were ministers and imams. There were women wearing hijab. The indigenous grandmothers came on board. Children especially loved to climb on and off that ark. And when it came time for Muslims to pray, the Muslim group next to us put their prayer rugs right down there on the pavement on 57th Street. And those of us of other traditions encircled them so that they could pray in safety and peace. But you know, this action of protection is not just a one-way street, because you've probably seen the viral videos of Muslims in Pakistan and Egypt who have done that for Christians praying in churches. They have come around those churches to protect the Christians inside. You see, we encircle each other. But back to the ark. So when we got moving, we played the playlist that we have put together of songs from the movement. This little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine. And I woke up this morning with freedom on my mind. We played all those songs from our playlist from the loudspeakers on the ark. And we gave people packages of animal crackers as we went by. You remember the 2x2, the animal crackers. And our humanist friend, who's a chaplain, decided that he'd rather ride on the ark with those religious folks. And so he climbed on the ark, and he made a sign, an atheist on the ark. And he draped it over the side of the ark as we were riding by, and people on the sides loved it. You see, what people saw was that we sparked their moral imagination. They knew that we were supposed to be there on one little ark representing one little planet called Earth that we all have to share together. It felt right to them and to us that we were there. We were out of our usual boxes, and God was out of God's box too. In the religious lingo, you would probably call this the beloved community. This is what it's supposed to look like. Or as Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. would put it, that inescapable network of mutuality tied together in a single garment of destiny. But you know, it's not always fun and games like this, because the stakes are so high, and the stakes are getting higher all the time. When anti-Muslim rhetoric became so virulent, and ever more so when Muslims daily have to fight discrimination and harassment, when children are bullied in school, and sometimes people even die, our faith leaders knew that they had to act. They had to take a stand, to stand in solidarity with our Muslim brothers and sisters. They knew that our traditions teach us that we're not supposed to just love the neighbor that we know, but the stranger too. That when one suffers, all suffer together. That if you can't breathe, I can't breathe. And so our faith leaders put together a campaign. It was a digital campaign, a love letter to Muslims. And over 30,000 people signed on almost immediately. Not just Muslims and Christians, but Jews and Sikhs and Buddhists and humanists all signed on to that love letter. But that's not all, because hundreds of people across the country decided that they wanted to deliver those love letters personally to Muslims in their communities, people often that they had never even met or talked to. And I can tell you that there was the love of a very big God, and tears and laughter and deep conversation when those letters were delivered. So what I've learned and what our leaders have learned is what we know, that we all need each other to change the world, that we have to keep drawing that circle of compassion ever larger to let more and different people in, just as that priest did for me. He let me in so long ago when he could have closed me out. But you know, the thing is, change doesn't just happen between and among us, but our understanding of who and what God is changed too. God shows up in those spaces between us. God, by whatever name, breath, spirit, divine, air, does not stay small and contorted and confined to any of the boxes of our human making. Now, the test of our transformation is going to be when I introduce myself on a platform like this, or talk to you when you're seated next to me in an airplane. I can tell you who I am without any hesitation, and you can tell me who you are. And my presence is not going to shut us down and off from each other, but open us up to the possibilities of what we can do together. And let's just say that I have faith that we and God together can do this miraculous thing. It's time to let God and us out of the box. Thank you.